What if Master Yoda spontaneously combusted? What would happen then? We pick up with Anakin standing in the council chamber after Palpatine appoints him to the Jedi Council, the Masters seated around him. Let's begin. The chamber's walls had witnessed over 10,000 arguments, and now they seemed to lean inward, greedy for one more. Anakin Skywalker occupied the exact center of the Master's circle. Each seated figure studied him with the particular stillness of those who have already decided the verdict. Palpatine's appointment had landed in their midst like a bad joke told at a funeral, and Anakin was the punchline, standing there in Jedi robes. "You are on this council," Mace Windu's voice carved through the silence, "but we do not grant you the rank of Master." Anakin's molars ground together. The muscles in his neck stood out like cables under tension, and he could taste copper where he'd bitten the inside of his cheek. His breathing had gone shallow and fast, each inhale feeding the heat building behind his sternum. He held Windu's stare, the kind of look that preceded violence in Mos Espa's back alleys. His right hand developed its own agenda, fingers moving toward his saber before he forced them still. He turned, walked, sat, the whole time feeling Windu's eyes boring into him. "Something on your mind, Skywalker?" Windu asked. Anakin was on his feet before the question finished. The movement sent his chair scraping back, and he didn't bother to right it. His stride back to the center ate up the floor in 4 hard steps. When he spoke, his voice came out scraped and low, like he'd been screaming for hours. "F*** you, Master Windu. That's what's on my mind. Without me, this temple would be getting 10% of the funding it gets now. Without me, the Order's reputation would be in the trash, where it belongs." Anakin's vision went crimson at the edges. He swiveled his head, taking in the circle of masters, but their faces blurred together. His chest heaved. Words crashed around in his skull, accusations, threats, truths, but none of them would line up properly. His mouth opened and closed. The rage needed an outlet, needed words, but all the eloquent arguments he'd rehearsed dissolved into static. He snapped his gaze back to Windu. What came out was pure impulse, nonsensical even to him. "I can rip your head off and beat you to death with it if I wanted." Windu stood, his purple blade igniting. "Let's test that theory then, you son of a bitch." Kit Fisto pinched the bridge of his nose. Plo Koon checked his chronometer. Someone, probably Mundi, muttered, "Here we go again," just loud enough to be heard. Sacy-Teen actually yawned. Shakti continued reviewing her datapad. Most council members didn't even look up. Put Skywalker and Windu in the same room, and this was inevitable. Had been ever since Qui-Gon's declaration robbed Mace of what he believed was his destiny. Anakin's blue plasma answered Windu's challenge, filling the chamber with crackling ozone. Obi-Wan half rose from his seat. Anakin, "Shut the f*** up." Anakin's finger stabbed toward his former master like a spear. In the corner, Master Yoda remained absorbed in his holopad, headphones clamped over his ears. He had the brightness cranked to maximum, claimed his 800-year-old eyes needed it, though most suspected that decades of recreational spice use had fried his retinas. Even in the chamber's daylight, the screen's harsh glare washed his wrinkled features in shifting blues and greens. Then his eyes widened. "Feel good, I do not," he said. The holopad clattered to the floor as his tiny hands clutched his midsection. Something wrong. Something very... The explosion transformed the council chamber into a maelstrom of organic shrapnel. Yoda's small form erupted with the force of a thermal detonator, his head separating cleanly and arcing through the air. As the head sailed toward him, Anakin screamed like someone who just saw a spider jump at them. He pivoted and kicked the projectile away. It ricocheted toward Windu, who let out an identical scream and executed an identical maneuver. The 2 warriors kicked frantically at the head, both screaming like younglings, their lightsabers completely forgotten. The head bounced between them 5 times before rolling to rest near the chamber's entrance. They stood frozen, lightsabers still humming, staring at the smoking crater where the Grand Master had been. Medical teams swarmed the chamber within minutes. Bomb squad technicians swept for additional devices, while forensic analysts collected samples. The remains were bagged, tagged, and transported to the Grand Republic Medical Facility for testing. Hours later, the council members, Anakin included now, gathered in the temple's secure comm hub. The chronometer on the wall showed past midnight, and several masters suppressed yawns in the windowless room lined with signal scramblers. Captain Griffin of the Coruscant Security Force materialized as a hologram in the center of the room. The CSF, Coruscant's police force, had been the Jedi's dogs for decades, and Griffin held the captain's position because they'd put him there. "Just got word from the lab," Griffin began. "They found deep substrate foliated tar residue had combined with concentrated spice in the Grand Master system. The interaction created an unstable molecular chain reaction. He consumed both substances within a 6-hour window. Anakin's knuckles went white. He'd warned Yoda about that hot party drug. High doses risked spontaneous combustion. Mixing it with spice? That was asking to explode. He hadn't thought the 900-year-old master would be that reckless. Griffin continued. The chief medical examiner arrives at 0700 hours. He'll sign off on the report first thing, then it goes straight to the Senate Oversight Committee. Once they process it, it's public record. The council exchanged glances. They told Griffin they'd contact him shortly and to remain on standby. The hologram flickered out. For the next hour, the council debated. Yoda exploding from recreational mind expansion would destroy everything, their reputation, their funding. The Senate might even demand financial audits, digging into decades of creative accounting. Anakin suggested they use this as an opportunity. They'd been waiting for the right moment to execute their plan anyway. Maybe the Force had given them a sign through Yoda's explosive end. Despite the constant fighting between Anakin and Windu, they found themselves in agreement. The other masters concurred. The time had come. They formulated the approach: make Yoda's death look like an assassination attempt. That would give them all the justification they needed to proceed with what came next. Griffin's hologram reappeared when they called him back. The council laid out the plan: initiate a C-67-1 narcotics raid on the medical facility. Once inside, alter the autopsy report and obliterate any tissue samples. Make it look like an equipment malfunction, a chemical fire, whatever. Just ensure nothing remained for future analysis. Griffin understood the protocol. His teams would storm in, discover significant quantities of narcotics, whether it existed there or not, and in the chaos, his technicians would access the computers and alter the autopsy report. Explosive device, unknown origin. Assassination probable. Within the hour, CSF tactical units stormed the facility. The 20 kilos of refined spice they discovered in the surgical ward sent the staff into panic. While officers secured the narcotics, Griffin's tech team rewrote history in the facility's computers. Once Griffin confirmed the autopsy had been altered, the final phase began. Anakin punched codes into his encrypted comlink. The connection between him and Padme had become the crucial link between the Jedi and her Senate coalition. Without it, this conspiracy would have been impossible. Padme's face materialized in miniature hologram. Anakin detailed Yoda's death, the cover-up, everything. Then, Padme, the time has come. Execute Order 65. Her smile could have frozen carbonite. Things moved quickly. Around 0300 hours, Padme's coalition called an emergency Security Council session, claiming urgent intelligence about Yoda's assassination. Palpatine's allies on the Security Council dutifully attended. Most of Padme's own supporters received convenient last-minute messages. Family members in accidents, loved ones suddenly ill, whatever fabricated crisis would keep them away. At 0315 hours, as the Security Council debated Yoda's assassination, the device woke up. Palpatine's entire power base on the Council, everyone who hadn't received those convenient last-minute emergencies, transformed into vapor and memory in a single brilliant instant. The survivors, all conveniently delayed by their emergency obligations, emerged with a perfect narrative. As far as they knew, their colleagues had gathered to discuss new evidence linking Palpatine to Yoda's assassination. After his spies alerted him to the meeting, a panicked Palpatine must have bombed the chamber to prevent Order 65, but failed to take out everyone. The surviving members invoked it immediately. Clone battalions mobilized across Coruscant, their programming recognizing legitimate Senate authority. The Jedi ensured CSF units joined them. The clones might actually try to arrest Palpatine, but Griffin's CSF officers would guarantee he died while resisting arrest, never making it to trial to challenge the evidence against him. Palpatine's office became a killing ground. When 50 clone troopers and CSF tactical units breached simultaneously, the Chancellor, left with no choice, revealed his true nature. Force lightning crackled from his fingers. A crimson lightsaber appeared from nowhere. Bodies accumulated like offerings at an ancient altar. His crimson blade carved through armor and flesh with equal ease, each movement a masterclass in Sith combat doctrine. The display of Sith powers only confirmed his guilt. Finally, the ornate Naboo carpet, a gift from his home planet, proved his undoing. His foot caught in its elaborate weave mid-leap. He pitched forward, skull meeting the floor with a wet crack. Severe traumatic brain injury with epidural and subdural hematomas, complicated by uncal herniation, claimed what armies could not. Problem solved. No CSF self-defense needed. Over the following days, evidence of Palpatine's corruption emerged, Financial records, secret communications, decades of manipulation. With Palpatine dead, Masameda became the next target, labeled as chief conspirator and sentenced to life in prison. Griffin earned a promotion as the hero who'd planned the operation, the brilliant tactician who'd dispatched the CSF units that cornered the Sith Lord. The fact he'd been safely in his office the whole time only proved his strategic genius. The Jedi's funding increased fivefold overnight. The Order was too busy celebrating their financial windfall to dwell on the revelation that Palpatine had apparently been some kind of Sith cultist. The war collapsed within weeks. Grievous, whose cognitive capacity had always been inversely proportional to his limb count, descended into strategic incompetence without his handlers. His increasingly deranged tactical decisions culminated in Newt Gunray accepting a Republic intelligence deal, poison Grievous in exchange for a lenient sentence. Padme later had Gunray burned alive in his cell, payback for his attempt on her life years earlier. Padme's appointment as Chancellor passed unanimously. Anakin's elevation to Supreme Commander faced no opposition. Everyone was happy. Even Anakin's strange dreams, the ones he'd called nightmares of people screaming and dying, had finally stopped. In the refurbished Jedi Council chamber, Yoda's portrait was mounted on a column. Mace Windu, very much alive but desperate to feel important, commissioned his own portrait to hang right beside it. When Anakin found out, he threw a fit and hung his own portrait on Yoda's other side. Now the three of them stared down at council meetings from the column, dead Yoda flanked by the two living masters, who couldn't stop their petty rivalry even in oil paint. The rest of the council had given up complaining about it. Soon after, Luke and Leia entered the world. Within 10 minutes of their first breath, their parents had them bundled up and shipped off to Naboo. The twins grew up there, raised by Sola. When they reached voting age, their parents made the trek to Naboo to meet their children for the first time since shipping them off as newborns. They shook the twins' hands to congratulate them on reaching adulthood and immediately left. Extremely generous of them. Most parents wouldn't show this much affection. They'd even remembered both children's names without checking their datapads.